Stapakaya ca dharmasya Sarvadharmasvarupine Stapakaya ca dharmasya Sarvadharmasvarupine Avatara Varishtaya Ramakrishna te namah. Asato ma sadgamaya Tamaso ma jyotirgamaya Mrityor ma mritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let us bow down to Sri Ramakrishna, the embodiment of all religions, the Supreme God incarnate. Let us pray to Him to lead us from unreal to the real, to lead us from darkness of ignorance to the light of knowledge, to lead us from death to immortality, to give us success in spiritual life. Sri Ramakrishna had given valuable instructions to Pandit Shashadhar, making him understand the importance of following spiritual disciplines. Spiritual life starts with the discipline. If there is no discipline, it is very difficult to make any progress in the spiritual path. Last time I was explaining to you to practice the discipline of prayer. Do it wholeheartedly and surrender yourself fully to the Supreme God. You don't have to think about yourself anymore. That is the concept of self-surrender. Depending wholly on God, not part by part. Let 75% be looked after by the Master. 25% let me keep for myself. If you have that attitude, prayer will not be successful. So, as I said in the last class, that six-fold surrender is very essential in our spiritual practices. The last one being the state of karpanya, state of helplessness. Because I had no time to explain it in the last class. Karpanya is a state of utter helplessness. You can't do anything. That's the state. That feeling of total helplessness is important to invoke God's grace. It's a great aid in practicing self-surrender and prayer. In fact, it is out of sheer helplessness that many people pray to God. A person who is perfectly sure of everything need not pray. Why should he pray? For what he should pray? Sri Ramakrishna used to say that as long as there is a store manager to look after the storeroom, the master of the house doesn't go there. There is no need for the master to go there. Swami Vivekananda teaches in the Inspired Talks, volume number 7 of the complete works of Vivekananda, where he says, God helps those who do not help themselves, who do not take the responsibility of doing themselves. They feel God is totally responsible for them. That is a state of helplessness. So, a real devotee of God, how does he behave? How should he behave? He or she. He uses every experience of sorrow, every experience of suffering, and every experience of difficulty as an incentive to pray to God. Probably you are aware of the famous episode in Mahabharata where the great Draupadi, a very staunch devotee, whose heart was occupied by Lord Krishna himself. Her whole mind was given to Sri Krishna. Whenever she was in terrible stress and strain, she would call on Lord Krishna. And within a few moments, everything would be cleared off and she would be restored peace and joy. You know, when she was dragged to the court of Duryodhana, where all the ministers and dignitaries were sitting, even the Pandavas, the husbands of Draupadi, were sitting, all watching the situation. Draupadi was dragged to the court. She was at that point of time in a monthly period. You know, the ladies have to pass through monthly period. So nobody should do anything unpleasant when the lady is passing through that state. But one of the Kauravas, under the orders of Duryodhana, he went to Draupadi's apartment, he dragged her out, pulled her literally into the courtroom and began to disrobe her, began to remove her sari in the public gaze. Without any shame he was doing that. Everybody was sitting silent, not doing anything to prevent it. Great heroes were all sitting there. Bhishma, Drona, Kripa, all those eminent persons of that time, they were all sitting there. But nobody raised any voice A great injustice was being done. But it went on that way. Draupadi had to pass through mental agony to the maximum extent. She knew very well within a few moments she would become naked. It was utter state of helplessness. She called Lord Krishna, "O Lord, do thou protect me." Her prayer was so total, it was so concentrated, it was so intense, it was so direct. Lord Krishna responded to her prayer. When the Kaurava was drawing out the sari of the Draupadi, it went on coming. It became inexhaustible. The whole hall was full of the sari. Still, he could not remove the cloth totally from her body. So that is the test of devotion. To what extent the devotee will have to pass through difficulties, difficult situations. It should be noted, Karpanya is, however, not a weakness. It only means that the devotee refuses to depend on the matter, but depends only on the spirit. Strong in the strength of God. He is not afraid of even death. Death is nothing. Such a person embraces the death. He doesn't run away from the death. He is not bothered about death. Why should he bother at all? This doesn't mean that we should pray only when difficulties come. Prayer becomes effective as a spiritual discipline only when there is continuity and intensity in it. A true aspirant prays. Prays for what? To give this, that? To do all sorts of jobs? To look after your needs? For that sake you have to call on God? If you pray to God for all these things, it only means you want God to serve you. God should be ready at your beck and call. No. A true devotee prays only for God vision. He prays only for his vision. His need is internal and doesn't depend on external things. So he prays continually. When difficulties come his way, he is ready to face them. He is not shaken by the difficulties. He doesn't collapse when the difficulties come. He prays with intense aspiration. intense aspiration. Protected and supported by divine grace, the man of prayer moves faster on the spiritual path than the person who depends solely on his own limited resources. While some aspirants toil all their lives, rowing their boats against the waves, others unfurl their sails and let the wind of divine grace carry them across the ocean of transmigratory existence. In one of the Puranas, the great epics of Hindu tradition, there are 18 Mahapuranas, 4 Vedas, 18 Mahapuranas, Itihasas, Ramayana, Mahabharata. These form the basic scripture of Hinduism. All the spirituality is embedded there. If you want to learn, if you want to improve your life, refer to those. You don't have to run after anybody. Just look into that. Whatever you want is available there. In one of the Puranas, the Garuda Purana, it is said how one gets human birth. Is it simply that you got it? No. According to that scripture, the human birth is got after passing through hundreds of other births. After hundreds of other births, you will get human birth. Then again it tells, rarer still is the religious disposition in a person. If a person does not try to develop spiritually and only fondles his senses, he misses the nectar which has as if come to his hands. Fondling of senses. That's all the people, what they are doing in this world. What is worldly life? Fondling your senses. Dancing nicely according to the tune of your whims and fancies of your senses. Fondling, what a fine term it is. One may easily succeed in worldly life by hook or crook. But to attain spiritual perfection, it requires great courage, it requires talent, it requires caution. These 3 things are important: courage, talent, and caution. So, when an aspirant takes to spiritual life, he is very sincere about his chosen ideal. But as days pass by, temptations come in his life in various ways. That's the time when he should be very cautious. If he is not alert, he falls a victim to them. name, fame, power, position, scholarship, all these try to overpower the aspirant if he is not alert. Even after taking spiritual path, some people, on account of their probably innate nature, become quarrelsome and show up hatred, show up jealousy. If you are not careful about those things, it is very dangerous in the spiritual path. You have to be very alert when jealousy comes, when hatred comes, when anger comes. You have to be extremely careful. You have to follow that warning. Be cautious. If you don't heed to that warning, you are gone out of the track. That means if you harbor jealousy, hatred, and all such bad nature in spiritual life, it is another kind of worldliness which is called spiritual materialism. If people are jealous in the world, there is nothing wonder in that. But if a person is jealous in the spiritual path, it is unpardonable. If you show hatred, if you lived in a disharmonious way, it is unpardonable. That means you are not following the spiritual path, you are just harboring your own bad nature to become more and more strong. So, spiritual materialism is worst type of danger the spiritual aspirant faces in the spiritual path. You have to be extremely cautious. You have to be. Falling a victim to temptations depends upon the spiritual caliber of the aspirant. We find in the life stories of spiritual aspirants that while crossing the spiritual ocean in the voyage from the land of the flesh to the land of the spirit, the life ship of many an expert sailor got struck by the hidden rock of temptation. It takes you unawares if you are not alert. Spiritual persons like Totapuri, who initiated Sri Ramakrishna into non-dualism, his worldly impressions have become completely subdued as a result of hard struggle in past lives. He may not feel the gravity of fight against the impressions, because that fighting is already over in his case. But people in general are being tossed to and fro like a shuttlecock by their good and bad impressions. So, Sri Ramakrishna emphasizes one must labor a little while at the preliminary stage of sadhana. Then the path becomes easy. Sri Ramakrishna says, steer the boat around the curves of the river and then let it go with the favorable wind. Steering the boat around the curves of the river is very, very important. That is the meaning of practicing preliminary disciplines. The Upanishads point out that in every sincere spiritual aspirant, there is bound to be an internal fight between his godly and demoniac tendencies. But he should have the conviction that the basic nature of all his organs is pure and divine. The impurity is only temporary and it can be got rid of by giving a tough fight with the demoniac forces on the right lines. So there is no reason for being depressed, although the evil tendencies become at times predominant in one's mind. In spite of repeated failures, he should not lose heart and leave the fight. If an aspirant sticks to his spiritual practices and disciplines with patience and with perseverance and lives a practical spiritual life, he is bound to succeed in the end. Those who are running after worldly things, running after worldly pleasures, they are surrendering to the demoniac forces and they are avoiding the fight. However successful their career might be in the world, they are subject to repeated birth and death. Repeated birth and death means you have to pass through repeated sufferings. So the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, another Upanishad says, by conquering the demoniac forces, by spiritual practices, the aspirant transcends death. One may feel bound like a slave and helpless like a straw before the strong current of the evil tendencies. But one should know that it is a lion which has been caught in the net of Maya, not a mouse. Swami Vivekananda says in one of his talks in Complete Works, he who is prepared to renounce all, who amid the strong current of the duality of good and evil, happiness and misery, is calm, steady, balanced, and awake to his ideal, he alone endeavors to attain to self-knowledge. He alone, by the might of his own power, tears asunder the net of the world. Nirgacchati jagajjalat pinjaradiva kesari. Breaking the barriers of Maya He emerged just like a mighty lion. These are the words of Swami Vivekananda. You are lion. You are immortal children, but you are behaving like a mouse, like idiot, stupid, on account of you are clinging on to unreal things, on account of your succumbing to the demoniac tendencies, on account of your giving a fight, not giving a fight against the bad tendencies. Even though you are great, you are not really experiencing that high quality of greatness on account of your own weakness. So, Swami Vivekananda is telling you, you are a lion, not a sheep. This knowledge can help aspirants to transcend their depression and march forward like brave soldiers with renewed zeal towards the goal supreme. Every aspirant should have the conviction that in the spiritual battle, the ultimate success is his, because it is said, Satyameva Jayate Nanrutam. Truth alone triumphs in the end, not falsity. So, never yield to demoniac tendencies. Never say, oh, my nature is like that. I am susceptible to anger. I am susceptible to jealousy. I am susceptible to hatred. I can't help it. Stop that kind of argument. If you talk like that, you are unfit to spiritual life. That means you are so weak, you can't fight against them. Go and die in those mire of dirty habits and tendencies. Die there. What else can be done? Spiritual life is for the heroes, not for the weaklings. Nayamatma balahinena labhya. It has been very emphatically declared in the Upanishads that this spirit cannot be realized by the weaklings. You have to trample upon your weakness. You should never harbor any kind of weakness that might come upon your life. Always try to find out what is wrong in your spiritual path. Rectify it. Instead of picking fault at others. Instead of irritating others, try to see inward. Try to see yourself. Try to see the rotten in your heart. Don't try to see the rotten in the other's heart. That's the way of spiritual life. That should be our practice. Practice sincerely, honestly. Sincerity is very important. So, build up the character first. Build up the life first. Purify yourself first. Then expect anything in spiritual life. Without preparing yourself, the ground properly, you can't expect any harvest. So with these words, I conclude my comments and I read some passage in the Gospel. Page 496. Ramdayal said to Shashadhar, the scriptures speak of Brahman's form as a projection of mind. Who is it that projects? Pandit Shashidhar said, it is Brahman itself that does so. It is no projection of a man's mind. Pratap, he said, why does Brahman project a form? Then Master replied, you ask why? Brahman doesn't act in consultation with others. It is Brahman's pleasure. Brahman is self-willed. Why should we try to know the reason for Brahman's acting this way or that? You have come to the orchard to eat mangoes. Eat the mangoes. What's the good of calculating how many trees there are in the orchard, how many thousands of branches and how many millions of leaves? One cannot realize truth by futile arguments and reasoning. Then Pratap said, shouldn't we reason any more then? Master said, I am asking you not to indulge in futile reasoning, but reason by all means about the real and the unreal, about what is permanent and what is transitory. You must reason when you are overcome by lust, anger or grief. That's the time when you have to apply reason. Shashidhar said, that's different. It's called reasoning based on discrimination. Master said, yes, discrimination between the real and the unreal. All sat in silence. Again the Master spoke, addressing the Pandit. Master said, formerly many great men used to come here. Shashidhar said, you mean rich people? Master, no, great scholars. In the meantime, the small car of Jagannath had been brought to the veranda. Inside the car were the images of Krishna, Balaram and Subhadra. They were adorned with flowers, garlands, jewelry and yellow apparel. Balaram was a sattvic worshipper. There was no outward grandeur in his worship. Outsiders did not even know of this car festival at his house. The Master and the devotees went to the veranda. Sri Ramakrishna pulled the car by the rope. Then he began to sing. See how all Nadia is shaking under the waves of Gauranga's love. He sang again, behold, the two brothers have come, who weep while chanting Hari's name. The two brothers are Gauranga and Nityananda. The brothers who in return for blows offer to sinners Hari's love. Sri Ramakrishna danced with the devotees. The musician and his party joined the Master in the music and dancing. Soon the whole veranda was filled with people. The ladies witnessed this scene of joy from adjoining rooms. It appeared as if Chaitanya himself were dancing with his devotees, intoxicated with divine love. It was not at dusk. Sri Ramakrishna returned to the drawing room with the devotees. Master said to Shashidhar, this is called Bhajanananda, the bliss of devotees in the worship of God. Worldly people keep themselves engrossed in the joy of sensuous objects of lust and gold. Through worship, devotees receive the grace of God and then His vision. Then they enjoy Brahmananda, the bliss of Brahman. Shashidhar and the devotees listened to these words with rapt attention. Shashidhar said humbly, Sir, please tell us what kind of yearning gives one this blissful state of mind. Master said, one feels restless for God when one's soul longs for His vision. The Guru said to the disciple, come with me. I shall show you what kind of longing will enable you to see God. Saying this, he took the disciple to a pond and pressed his head under the water. After a few moments, he released the disciple and asked, how did you feel? The disciple answered, oh, I felt as if I were dying. I was longing for a breath of air. Shashidhar said, yes, that's it. I understand it now. Master said, to love God is the essence of the whole thing. Bhakti alone is the essence. Narad said to Rama, may I always have pure love for your lotus feet, and may I not be deluded by your world-bewitching Maya. Rama said to him, ask for some other boon. No, said Narada. I don't want anything else. May I have love for your lotus feet? This is my only prayer. Pandit Shashidhar was ready to leave. Sri Ramakrishna asked a devotee to bring a carriage for the Pandit. Shashidhar said, don't trouble yourself, I shall walk. Master said smilingly, oh, how can that be? You are beyond the reach of even Brahma's meditation. Shashidhar, there is no particular need of my going just now. The only thing is that I shall have to perform my sandhya. Master said, the Divine Mother has taken away my sandhya and other devotions. The purpose of the sandhya is to purify the body and mind. I am no longer in that state. The Master sang the following lines of a song. When will you learn to lie, O mind, in the abode of blessedness, with cleanliness and defilement on either side of you? Only when you have found the way to keep these wives contentedly under a single roof will you behold the matchless form of Mother Shyama. Pandit Shashidhar saluted the Master and went away. Ram said, I visited Shashidhar yesterday. You asked me too. Master said, did I? I don't remember, but it is nice that you went. Ram said, the editor of a newspaper was abusing you. The Indian Empire paper. Master said, suppose he was. What does it matter? Ram said, please listen. Then I began to talk to the editor about you. He wanted to hear more and would not let me go. It was dusk. Sri Ramakrishna began to chant the names of the Divine Mother, Krishna, Rama and Hari. The devotees sat in silence. The Master chanted the names in such sweet tones that the hearts of the devotees were deeply touched. That day Balram's house was like Navadvip. When Chaitanya lived there, when on the veranda it was like Navadvip, and in the parlor it was like Vrindavan. That same night Sri Ramakrishna was to go to Dakshineshwar. Balram took him into the inner apartments and served him with refreshments. The ladies of the family saluted the Master. The devotees were singing Kirtan in the drawing room, awaiting the Master's coming. Presently Sri Ramakrishna came and joined the singers. The Kirtan went on. Behold, my Gora is dancing with the devotees. He dances in Shivasa's courtyard, singing the Kirtan. Gora says to all, repeat the name of Hari. He looks at Gadadhar, and from his red eyes are flowing tears of love over his golden body. The Master improvised the lines. Gora is dancing in the Kirtan. There he dances, Shachi's darling. There he dances, my Gauranga. There he dances, my soul's beloved. That completes the chapter 25. Next Tuesday we are starting the chapter 26, Festival at Other's House. Now questions. Geeta has got some question to ask. Anybody? Yeah. That is another way.
It's another way?
No, that is another way. Another way, I know that statement, God helps those who help themselves. That is, that should be understood in a different way. That means one should exert himself to do things, not to depend on somebody else for doing the things. That's the meaning of telling he helps those who help themselves. If you are struggling to do something, help will come to you in some form so that you will go onward in your journey. That's one way. Here, God helps those who do not help themselves. This statement that whatever happens, happens. So that, in that state, he feels he is not the doer of anything. Everything is done by him. So when things come, he feels that state of helplessness. That's what, when I gave the example of Draupadi, when she was being dragged into the court, how she passed through that state of utter helplessness. First she thought she was holding part of the sari with one hand, and another hand she was raising and calling Krishna. Krishna didn't come. Because she was holding part of the sari by her hand. Then immediately she became aware of the fault which she was doing. She let it go. She lifted both her hands. Oh Lord, I am totally surrendered to you. I am helpless now. That attitude, totally depending on God, that is used in the spiritual context. A person who is totally devoted to God, he feels the presence of God and he experiences the glory of God in his own life. In order to enhance the glory of life, glory of God, the devotee becomes an instrument. God shows his glory through his devotee. God will never forsake a devotee who is totally surrendered to him. That's the concept. Yes, in India. Any comments? Yeah. They are all different ways. It is true, but how do you know it? Unless your spiritual ideas get matured. Nothing moves without the will of God. That's a statement. But to understand that, you have to do little practice. You must pass through the state of self-surrender, and you must pass through different experiences in the life which will confirm to you it is true. And of course, if you have got such tremendous faith, everything is happening by the will of God, then be peaceful. So peacefulness is important. Are you able to do that? We say, but we don't believe. That's the point. Even Lord Krishna tells Arjuna, what you fellow, you are telling you are not fighting, etc. You will fight and the battle will go and all these people will be killed, etc., etc. And he tells him for the nimitta matram bhavasavya sachin. You are only instrument. God is working through you. That is true. The whole world is going on by God's will. Do you think it is going on account of my will or your will? It is God's will. World goes on like this. Some people asked a question, why even the Mahatmas, even the sages, they suffer? Why? They don't have any past samskaras or past lives impressions, etc., etc. Before they were born, they were pure. How can you explain? But it is explained. It's a human play. They want to play the game. They want to pass through the suffering. They want to pass through all the states which all people are undergoing, and then show them, look, I am also like you. Come on. Why are you weeping? I am also weeping like you. but how to make progress. So he behaves in the way how the worldly man behaves, not from the worldly point of view, but to show him, to give him a lesson that you have to direct your life in a proper way. You are suffering because you are not thinking about God, you are not worshipping God, you are not giving due respect or credibility to the presence of the divine power. You think you are yourself. So that egoistic attitude is responsible for your suffering. So when incarnation lives among the people, passing through all suffering, at the same time he is able to practice spirituality, people will understand, oh, he knows what his suffering means. Otherwise he can easily make an observation, oh, what, he is God after all, he doesn't know our suffering, how we are suffering here, how does he know? He can make a remark. No. God suffers more than what you suffer. Whenever God comes, he suffers most. Take anybody's life. Lord Christ, how much he suffered? Sri Ramakrishna, how much he suffered? Of course, Sri Krishna did not suffer. It's a different life. So, like that, to set a model, it's a play. That also, before you realize it, it's a play, it's serious to you. Yeah, in the soccer game, how many people, they play with so much vehemence, with so much tension, they want to win the game. But they know, both the parties know it's a game. But they are struggling very hard to succeed in the game. That's just like that. The life is also like a game. But you have to succeed in the life's game. That success will come only when you pursue spiritual path. Only through spiritual path you get real peace or real joy. By none other method. Worldly prosperity will not give you immense peace or immense joy. That's all.
Unless you know the vision, how do I know that I succeeded? Unless I know what is the vision in my mind, how do I know that I succeeded?
By seeing. See, first of all you must know what is the meaning of success in life. In order to know that, first of all you must determine what you want. What's your aspiration? Success, I am telling from the point of view of spirituality, not from the point of view of your career. I said in my course of my talk, by hook or crook you can get success in the worldly career, but not in spiritual matters. Because to see God, to get the vision of God, that is the meaning of success in life. So you have to work to get that success. That's all. Any more? Michael Ibrahim, Ramalinga Sharma. Yes?
When you talked about, you have to follow certain disciplines. You have to follow certain disciplines, otherwise your spiritual life is not going to be successful.
Spiritual life is not?
Is not going to be successful.
Oh. See, spiritual discipline is prescribed to purify the impure heart. Spiritual discipline means struggling. You are struggling to get over the weakness. In order to get over the weaknesses, you have to follow certain methods. That's called discipline. Instead of telling, my temperament is, as soon as I see a person, I get angry. So what? Do you mean to say that everybody should run away from you because you always show your angry face? But you have to change. You have to change. Not simply telling, not simply confirming your nature. I am that, come what may. If that stand is taken, the person not only suffers himself, but causes suffering to others also. So, you have to understand how it is obstructing in your spiritual path. So how to contain it, how to get rid of that nature. You have to struggle. That is called discipline. That means moments will come when you become excited. Immediately you must think, no, I should not lose my sense. Take some steps to get over that mood. That is called the discipline. You are not succumbing to the bad nature. Bad nature comes on account of bad impressions. But don't act upon. Say a person went to the mall. Nobody was there. Lots of things, very attractive things are there. Immediately the thought came, why not I steal a particular thing? The idea of stealing, it came to the mind. That's because of the bad tendency. But he should not act upon. Simply because the thought came, go and immediately grab it. No. Don't give importance to that. Just ignore it. Don't act upon it. That's the way. Things happen, but don't react. That means you have to be watchful and cautious in your spiritual life all the time. Except of course when you are sleeping. When you are awake, the moment you are awake, from that moment you must be cautious, you must be watchful, you must be alert. Don't hurt anybody, don't get yourself hurt. Even if somebody hurts you, don't react. It's meant for spiritual practice, I'm telling you. It's also true, what I'm telling is all theory, difficult to practice. Simply telling it's difficult to practice will not clear the way. Even though it's difficult, you have to follow it. The difficulty is because you're not able to take the mind along with you. So you have to train the mind. Training of mind is the importance of discipline. What is discipline? Training the mind. That is the discipline. Training the mind to go in a particular fashion. Not in the way in which it runs. Don't fondle your senses.